Okay, let's start. So welcome. I will do the, let's say, the introduction and asking the question to you, Alessandro. This is our third product talk, and today our host is Alessandro. And just to give you a bit of context, I have the pleasure to meet him, like I think 3 weeks ago during an online masterclass. And after listening to his experience, I wrote him and asked him, okay, would you like to join us here? And so here we are. Thank you, Alessandro, for your availability. And I think we can start, if you want, introduce yourself, share a bit of your experience background on what you do, what you've done.
Sure, thanks. So first of all, it's a pleasure meeting you, and thank you so much for inviting me. Yes, I'm Alessandro. I'm currently head of marketplace product at Casavo. I have a background in management and marketing, and prior to Casavo, I worked more on the marketing field. And I joined Casavo from the marketing angle. So I started in digital marketing, then I transitioned to product marketing, and then to product management. I've had the experience, let's say, or the opportunity to see Casavo from the beginning. I was like the 20th employee, something like that. So I've seen the evolution of Casavo over time, and also the switch, let's say, from a more asset management fund to a more product company that at the moment is the core, especially on the marketplace side. Just a quick introduction also on Casavo that I think gives context on what we do. We started with the idea of simplifying life for people that were selling their home. And the idea was, okay, the best way is to buy properties directly, right? So you were selling, we were buying, renovating, and reselling the property. But actually, that was just a play to have a wedge to aggregate supply, so sellers, and aggregate buyers, because we had the property on sales. And at a certain point, you don't need anymore to purchase the property, because you can simply match sellers and buyers and then execute this transaction. At the moment, this is already 60% of our revenues, and we expect to be 100% of our revenue. So a little bit standing by the iBuyer, because we believe more in this asset-light marketplace business model. So that was just the intro to give you an idea of what we're doing and where we are at in our path.
Thank you so much. Super interesting. We start with the first obvious maybe question. We would like to know how our product teams organized in Casavo, in general.
Absolutely. So we are more or less 85, 90 people overall in the product organization. We are organized in two main tribes. So we have the marketplace one, and then we have the broker one. So we started originally with 3 different tribes, Spotify model, sellers, buyers, and brokers. Then we decided to merge the 2 audiences in a marketplace tribe that has then 2 components: seller, supply generation, and demand aggregation. And then we have the brokers tribe. Within the sellers tribe, the marketplace tribe, which is the one that I work with, we are more or less 30 people. There are 4 squads, cross-functional, back-end, front-end, designers. And then we have the data component. On top of so we have the tribes, then we have the data hub, which are specific centralized data people that support as a platform team the other teams. And then we have also the BI. That's more or less the whole team. Maybe I can deep dive later, but within the marketplace tribe, we have the squads that, as I said, front end, back ends, and 1 designer per each squad. However, we treat designers in data, we call them travelers. So they work with the squad, but if needed, we can move them around, because maybe there is a specific need on a specific squad. So we want 2 designers, or this happens a lot with the data people, because sometimes, so now we're building a buyer recommendation system. So it's essentially a model that is proposing properties to buyers. So now they're working with that team. Prior to that, they were working, for example, on with the seller side, building the algorithm to match sellers and buyers. So this is more or less how we are organized. And for each,
Wow.
sorry, for each squad, we have a product manager, more or less. Sometimes a product manager can manage 2 squads. And then for each tribe, we have a head of product. On the engineering side, we have a head of engineering for each tribe, and we have engineering managers or a tech lead in each squad.
That's nice. You just fired like 2 questions, but it's an assist because among the questions there was the one related to design, product designer. So this is something that we are still growing also in We Road. So you told that you have one designer for each squad, but they can, let's say, share or cross between squads. And the question is, how does product managers interact with designers when they do, I don't know, the discovery phase or something like
Yeah,
that?
so that's a great question. So designers are mostly assigned to a squad, let's say, right? So it's easy for a product manager because they work with the same designer on an everyday basis. And they know that the backlog item that will be managed by a squad will be also be managed, let's say, from the designer of that squad. However, on a weekly basis, we meet as, let's call, design team, let's say, and product managers, and we do kind of a planning to check where we're going, okay, what is the focus of this week, etc. And at that stage, we understand if we need to reallocate a little bit our design resources, because we also have a content designers, for example, and she's working with all squads, so it's not really with one squad or the other. And then we have the customer experience team that support us with discovery sometimes. They're not assigned to specific squads, right? So on a weekly basis, we align and we decide, okay, how to move forward. But the product manager knows that there is a designer that is following a backlog and a squad, let's say.
Cool. And designers can be shared among tribes also, or they are
No,
very
at the moment,
different?
they stay within a tribe because you need to build, to have the context, etc. Then sometimes, of course, there are organizational needs, so we may need to do some switches, but they're more like, every year, something like that. So it's not a dynamic switch.
Okay, that's fine. Some questions from home on this, so we can move on from home. From connected people, yeah. Okay, I think we can move. Staying on the product managers, but also product design stuff. Another question was, how much do you balance the discovery versus delivery when you do
Yeah.
new features? Or...
Yeah. So, by the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning that we are trying and learning. So, this is just sharing the experiences, right? So, how we manage, let's say, the discovery and the execution phase. So we work with the quarterly OKRs. Okay, so every quarter we set the objective and the key results. And normally, let's say that the quarter starts in July, right? So in the month of June, I already start engaging the first discussion with the stakeholders, let's say, and with the team about what we're going to do next. And that moment is really where we also define which are the discovery streams that we want to focus on for the next quarter, to prepare the next quarter. Okay, so this is more or less the moment in which the designer, they start setting up the discovery in order to support us. Once we're going to have defined the objective and key results, we will need to talk about the opportunities. And because we already have done some discovery, we have a better idea of how can we solve the problem to reach our key results, right? But then there is what I call it a continuous discovery, meaning that, for example, we now we are at the beginning of July, so we define the opportunities, and now we want to deep dive on some opportunities. So, for example, we refine some backlog items, so the team can work on some backlog items, and in parallel, the designers are deep diving on a specific discovery topics. So let's say that there's not a balance. There is, let's say, a continuous discovery and execution. Normally, the beginning of the quarter is, or even before the beginning of the quarter, is very heavy on the discovery side. And then in the middle of the quarter is more about execution. And at the end of the quarter is preparing for the following one. So that's more or less the balance. How the engineering part is involved in the discovery. Sometimes they participate to specific streams. Sometimes we have more tech discoveries, let's say, or R&D, let's say. For example, on the data part, which is the part that I follow a lot. I manage directly the data guys. And there the discovery is more about experimenting. So we start with a problem. The first step, does it make sense to solve this problem through technology, let's say AI, machine learning? Then they do some experimentation. Then we sit back and we say, okay, there is a potential to solve the problem. Let's move forward. So that's the more tech discovery that we have.
Thank you. Nice. I can connect to on the chat regarding OKRs that you mentioned. Two questions in one, so maybe you can dive deep more on that. You discussed, or you set OKRs on an annual basis. Is that right? I got it right? Or
so we have the yearly OKRs that,
yeah,
but they're at the company level. Then we have the product strategy that is a 1 year time frame, and then based on that, on a quarterly basis, we define the OKRs. So as product team, we don't have a yearly OKRs, we have quarterly OKRs based on the yearly strategy.
Good, thank you. And then Jasmine has a question here regarding OKRs. Do you write them as KPIs? For example, increase the number of matches between buyers and sellers by X%, or do you write directly initiatives inside OKRs?
Yeah, so I think we've done a lot of iteration on OKRs. I think they're quite complex and sometimes can become a problem more than a solution. But I think we are now I'm very happy of the status that we reach, because we're able to set outcome-based OKRs,
Yes.
right? So it's not about the output, it's more about the outcome, exactly as you brought, right? So normally our objective, for example, I can mention the objective on the seller side this quarter is more educate customers at the top of the funnel. So it's not exactly but anyway, something like that. So that's the objective. And the key results, for example, is increase by X% the number of visits executed, or increase by X%, something like that, right? And then once we have that, we define which are the opportunities to reach that key results. Sometimes in a more, let's say, not mature phase, we were also, and I think it's totally okay also for us to set some key results that are more output based. So I want to build this feature, I want to do that, I want to launch something, but in general, I feel like the model behind the OKRs, it works very well with the outcome-driven OKRs.
Okay, just a quick question on this, if I can. When you set a KR that is based on outcome and not on output, do you have a way to like connect that KR with the initiative that the team, for example, for a developer, is clear how his tasks are related to the outcome that you want to reach, or do you have a way to allow the people in the team understand why this task here or the set of tasks is crucial to get to their?
Yes, yeah. So we have a method for that. I think, however, in general, it also depends on the key results and the KPI, let's say, that you set, because sometimes we made the mistake of choosing KPIs that were really business or commercial oriented, and maybe we were not able to really impact on that, right? So I think the challenge is you need to have something that it makes sense for the business, but it's something under your control. So at the beginning, if you haven't built a product that is directly impacting on the business, sometimes you're not ready for that, right? So you go with output driven OKRs. Regarding how we connect the key results and to each single backlog item, normally in each backlog item, we mention the key results that we aim at impacting and the hypothesis behind that. So for example, let's say that we introduce the comparables transaction to justify the price because we want more people to click. We say, okay, we want to increase the level of trust. So this will impact that key results, and we expect an increase in the conversion rate.
clear. Thank you.
Super.
There's a lot to talk about on this, but it's very interesting. Thank you, Alessandro, for sharing. Staying on the product management, product design, let's say, stuff, in Casavo, product managers, which is the balance between the responsibility they have on the, let's say, strategy and KPIs versus the one they have on delivery, let's say, good features and measuring them. And so do they have control over the full chain, or do they have more, they are more operative or more on the strategic side?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It depends, I think, on the seniority and the type of responsibility that we have. In general, we tend to see the product management function as a business function, so responsible for business outcome. The way in which we shape that to make it concrete and real. So we had to transition from a situation in which the product was the product and the business was the business, right? To the current one. And how we did, we created what we call the guiding coalition. So essentially, we had the head of sellers operation, me as head of seller product, and the engineering manager working together. And essentially, I think the main we reached two goals thanks to that. First of all, using OKRs as a function, so not only as product, but everyone going in the same direction, right? And the second one is educating the business stakeholders on how you start from a problem, you find solution, and then how we work, right? So at Casavo, we see product managers in this business, let's say, role. However, for example, if you're more a junior product manager or a product manager of a squad, you are focused more on, okay, the delivery and the key results. Let's say, how can I reach the key results? Am I doing my best to reach the key results? And then I think it's more a product leadership role, connecting the key results with the business and driving a strategy that is driving business impact, right? So I think in general, we see the product manager as a business role. However, I think it depends on your seniority. And I would, in general, suggest to junior roles to focus on execution, delivery, and communication and impact before jumping to the next level.
That's great.
Make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me, at least. I don't know for others, but it's interesting. And I was looking at the question while you were talking us. It's nice. I would have asked you, how do you, let's say, educate the business? But maybe we need another meeting, or if you want, you can add something on that, because I think it's very hard to start educating a business on the product-led transition.
Yeah, so I think what I mentioned is more or less how we try to do it, right? So really combining, working together, having the same OKRs. I push them to list the initiative, let's say in the same opportunity tree or in the same roadmap. So to show them, okay, we are contributing in this way, but how are you contributing in that way, right? And I think the other important connection is what we call the product operation roles, which are people that they come from the business, they work with us, they understand how the product is working, and then they go back and educate the business about the processes, about how things work. Because if you think about our business, Casavo, there are a lot of internal operation, there are a lot of internal processes, and normally every release that is customer facing, it also has an impact on processes, right? And we're struggling a lot in educating the internal team on how things are changing, and the product operation role is quite important with that respect. And if you do it right, it makes the difference. We lost a very talented person that was very aligned with us, and we can see the difference a little bit.
That's great, but how much time they stay with you on the product team to learn, and then
so
they
it's
go back?
a constant exchange, right? So they work with us, for example, in the refinement for the release plan. They know the roadmap, and then when for example, they are responsible of with the product manager in defining the release plan, and we say, okay, we're going to do this demo to the team, we're going to prepare this release support material, and I'm going to do interviews with the internal team after 2 weeks to measure how is it going. So it's really they're part of the team on a everyday basis. So they're not, let's say, in a learning phase and then they go back to the, I explain it not very clearly, but yeah, they are part of the team, let's say, for me.
Okay, that's great. And I have one last question regarding, let's say, design, but not only, also tech. Do you have an internal design system or tools that you need to build and maintain? And if so, how do you manage the maintenance? Maybe there are people, individual contributors from each squad that dedicate, I don't know, 1 hour, 2 hours a week to add and these kind of tools.
Yeah. So let's start from the design part. On the design perspective, we had a design system that was really not very effective and maintained and used. So we launched a project a couple months ago to recreate our own internal design system. And this is led by some designers that allocate more time, let's say 1 hour every day, to create this design system, and then on a weekly basis they meet with the front enders in order to discuss the progress, how is it going, this component, etc., etc. And we maintain it in Figma. We use a storybook, so we try to map the two things and maintain it more or less. So it's a shared responsibility of this group of people, also the maintenance. And in terms of, because I think I saw the question, you were mentioning backend libraries, stuff like that. What we do is they meet on a weekly basis and they do what they call backend design sessions, because within a tribe of 4 squads, you need to create some connection, some discussion, you need alignment, right? So the way in which they do it, they meet on a weekly basis for 1 hour. They do a design backend session where they discuss the libraries, they discuss the way in which they prefer to work. So I don't have a lot of specific details on that because I don't participate to the meeting, but this is the way in which we try to coordinate among backends, and front ends do the same. Sorry, I mentioned the backends one because it's more, there is more content, there is more heated discussion. The front end one, it's also because they also do the discussion about the design system. These are the 2 moments that they have.
Great. So you have, let's say, some fixed time slots that you take into account when you plan the activities for the sprint, I don't know, the week. How do you work? Okay, that's fine. There are questions on this.
Seba, sorry, if I can add something on this about the fixed time slot. So I started working with a team of 3 people at the beginning, and then we grew to 30 people. When zero interest rate, and blah blah blah. So it was, and I think when you start like that, it was very important to have very rigid rules. So for example, we knew that meeting could only happen between 9:30 and 10:30, or 12 to 1, 2 to 3, 5 to 6, and really have dedicated time, because me and the engineering manager, we wanted to create habits and consistency in the team. And now there is much more freedom because we are much more mature team. We don't use sprints anymore, for example, because we feel we have the rhythm, let's say, but the backend session and the front end session remain as a legacy of that, and I think it works very well. The team is very happy about them.
Super nice. Thank you for sharing. Questions from home on this part, front end design. Go, Jasmine.
I will be faster speaking. So you have a sort of continuous release approach if you don't have sprints, right? Okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
That's great. So this is a good assist for my next question. So you manage different platforms because you have a web app, an iOS and Android app and stuff like that. So how do you manage the product features in different platforms? I don't know, do you have some like a preferred platform where you start from, also from the discovery or releasing features and then on web or vice versa? Can you explain a bit how you manage different platforms?
Yeah, so we do have different platforms. We have web, and then we have a mobile app for iOS and Android. Our mobile app is in React Native, and essentially we deliver the same feature both in iOS and Android, because it's a single, let's say, code base for both platforms. And I hope I'm not saying things that are not correct, but there is a Medium article on our blog post about this, why we chose React Native, and some details about this. So we have the app, and then we have the web. I think one of the main elements that make it easy, let's say, this potential problem, is that we have different features across platform, because the web part for the seller is the top of the funnel, essentially, and it's not replicated in the app, only with a web view that is essentially opening up the valuation flow. Then we have everything on the app, let's say, for the seller's experience, while buyers is everything on mobile, right? So we really don't have this problem of say, okay, where do we start? Do we do this feature first on web and then on app? Because essentially it's going to stay either on web, on app, or on app. So it's a little bit easier for us at this stage, or at least I don't see the problem, let's say. So when we think about a feature, we know already that it will go either on the web platform or on the mobile app platform, because of how the journey is built.
That's great. So you have always, or you try to have always, feature parity on both app,
yeah,
Android and iOS. We have
Correct.
not platform specific features, and you may discover it for both kind of products, also the one for the sellers.
Yeah. So
Okay.
of course, different teams, they work on sellers and on buyers, but yeah.
Okay, great. I have another question just came in my mind regarding metrics. So that you have a data team, if I get it right. And how do you measure metrics? Who is in charge to measure them? And also who is in charge, the PM, the head of the data team, of, let's say, keep an eye on them and understand what is going on, and also start new initiatives from them. So the interaction between the product and the data team on metrics, and also the marketing team, maybe, or the growth team?
Yeah. So it's a complex topic. I'll try to answer it my best. Maybe we need to ask any question if everything is not clear. So I think the product analytics, let's say, it's a shared responsibility, first of all, and for us it starts at the refinement. So when we think about a new feature in the backlog item, we define the tracking plan, and the measurement plan, let's say. So we say, okay, because we want to measure this, we need to track these events in this way, okay? So when we release it, we already know which are the metrics that we want to check, to see if it has been a success or not. And no, at the beginning, when we're not mature, we had to ask for the support of our BI analyst to create a specific dashboard, etc. Now we are much more mature. We know, because also the data pipeline and the way in which we treat data is more mature, and I'm going to deep dive in a second. It's much more self-serving. So either the PMs or the designer are much more fast in getting the answer, or also the analyst, the BI analyst is faster in preparing a quick dashboard to support the analysis and the investigation. So for example, the other day we released something, and the moment in which released, the dashboard was ready and was made by the BI guy, and I wrote to him on Slack, and I was like, I don't think it's very common in a lot of companies to release the feature and have the dashboard to measure it, right? So I think this is the dream we all have, and for us it's not like that. And it was, especially at the beginning, it was the PM really spending a lot of time trying to understand what to measure, and now we have a much more mature data culture. And on the data culture, what I wanted to mention is we have what we use the approach that is called data mesh. Essentially, our data, they are organized in zones. We have the silver zones, the golden zone, So essentially, all the data that are produced by our different products are then organized by our data scientists into a silver zone. For example, we have the valuation silver zone that is aggregating multiple sources of data and is creating a consistent table where I have Sebastiano, started valuation, completed, etc. And every time we add a new feature, essentially is a new column. Okay, so that makes very easy. Then for me as a PMs, I have the tables that is perfect, and I can do query, I can do reporting directly on that. And it was very important at the beginning for the data scientists and data engineers, I would say, to reach an agreement with the rest of the team, mainly backend engineers, on how to manage data and make sure that it's their responsibility to make sure that the data reaches the silver zone without the need of having a data engineer working on that. So I think this is a bit complex, and I'm not the super expert on this, but I hope it was clear enough.
Yeah, to me, yes. And if I can go on, you on the more or less the same topic, you told us that you started from being a product marketing manager or marketing world. Yeah. So do you have product marketing managers in Casavo, and how, if so, how they interact with PMs?
So this call is recorded, so I cannot be fully
You can cut.
No, we struggle on that, and they know, and the product marketing people at Casavo knows it, so they will not hate me. So we haven't never found a perfect balance, because we have a very strong marketing team, a larger marketing team with brand, performance marketing, etc. So we always struggle a little bit to find the role for product marketing. We used to have 2 product marketing people, and now we have a single person that is mostly responsible about aligning the rest of the marketing team on what is going on and the value proposition and the changes to the value proposition that we make through with each single release. It's not the way in which I envision the product marketing role, because for me, product marketing role, it should be part of the refinement and then should be responsible of the last part of the backlog item, right? After you release, you probably need to communicate it, and you need to drive growth. In our case, it's not really like that. So they are responsible of some campaigns, but they're mostly a connection between the marketing team that has the capabilities to build the campaign, to do the advertising, blah, blah, and the product team. So it's something that we need to find still, I think, our right spot.
Okay, hard question. Well, I think it's hard for everyone. And I read you a question. Someone of us saw recently that you have done a video on your new search functionality. So the question is, do you usually use your product to do some showcase and like a marketing tool? And if so, it is driving more usages or more users or some metrics impacting somehow?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it testified the change from a non-product company to a product company, right? So at the beginning, if I think about the way in which we communicated our campaigns, it was mostly about, we buy your home, get a home valuation in 30 seconds, right? The first one is really not product. The second one a little bit, but very basic, and Tecnocasa does the same, right? Then I think we start to understand that because we were offering then a service that was similar to services that the agency offers. So when I talk about the match, is a traditional selling mandate. We give you give me your selling mandate, and we try to find the match either in our database or on the market, right? So then we understood that we needed to explain our added value, and our added value was through product. So for example, our latest campaign, out of home campaign, I don't know if you've seen it, but essentially it says it's a preview of the last screen of our valuation flow, where you have the value of your home, and then you have the 2 services, the iBuyer and then the agency one. And on the agency side, they added a small banner that is exactly what we have on product, that says we already have 99 buyers matched. So that was a product feature that is then driving a communication campaign, because I think the campaign was something around the perfect match. We find the perfect match for you. So I think I was very proud that we started from and maybe we can deep dive on that. But we started from discovery, we built the MVP, we saw traction, then we scaled it, and then we did a communication campaign. So I think we're more and more, we are starting to use the product features to drive traffic. For example, on the buyer side, we are building a listing platform that is very similar to immobiliare.it. And of course, we need to communicate something different, and the difference is product in this case, right? So the laid back experience powered by our machine learning models. So it's something that is difficult to communicate, but I think you should always communicate the value for the customer, right? So the value for them is you don't have to worry about looking for your home. So, and you need product as an enabler for that. So we are transitioning more to this. So using product to communicate the value that we create.
Is it working? Can you measure?
It's hard to measure, and I think I don't have probably the answer, the precise answer to this question. But I feel it's the only way that we can move forward, right? Because on the buyer side, what do you communicate? You communicate the product, right? You communicate the product feature, because otherwise people are like, okay, but you have 1,000 homes on Casavo. If I go on Immobiliare, they have 100,000. Like, why should I go to Casavo? And then there is product. So I think it's the only way. But sorry, I actually have a data. So we were comparing our traditional campaigns to generate leads, saying get a home valuation, and then the ones about get the perfect match for your home. And the cost per lead was 25% lower in the case of the get the perfect match. So it just came to my mind, but I think it answered the question perfectly. Then maybe it was just a good case, but I think there is potential for this.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. There are questions on this from people in the meeting before we change a bit of the topic. No questions. Don't be shy. Always shy. Okay. So thank you, Alessandro. Very, very interesting. Maybe and we will need another product talk on marketing and stuff like that. But I need to change a bit the topic.
Yes.
We have a few questions less regarding production incidents. How do you manage them? Do you have like a production incident management flow or something similar?
So we do. First of all, we have what we call the alarm watchover. So essentially, we have people each week that are responsible for checking the alarms on our alerts channel, okay? And they're responsible of investigating and managing any potential incident, okay? And then we have an incident procedure. Let's say, I think you said a more nice word for that. So essentially, when there is an incident, depending on the severity, let's say, of the incident, we assign a severity to it, and then we stop doing everything else potentially to solve the incident. And the person responsible are the person that were in the watchover, right? So they lead a little bit the incident resolution, or they ask for support of other people if needed. And we have a Jira ticket that is created, and it's used to understand, okay, what is the status of the incident. And in our case, the PM is mostly responsible about the communication part, so communicating with the different stakeholders if needed, or sometimes is not needed. But normally there is a PM that is managing the communication with the stakeholder or externally. For example, we had an incident last week where we were testing a property. So we were simulating to be a seller that was uploading some pictures, and the pictures end up to real buyers. So we sent an email to 500 buyers saying, okay, there is a new property for you, and there was a picture of an island, right? So in that case, it's not really an incident. I don't know, it was a mess. And the PM with the content designer, we said, okay, let's send a email, and we manage that, etc. So I think it depends of the type of incident. Sometimes, I don't know, this morning in France, the valuation model was down, so we were not able to perform any valuation because of a downstream problem with our provider that we had in France. So for example, we communicated to the marketing team, we stopped because maybe you want to stop the performance marketing campaign. So there are a lot of discussion around that.
Amazing. Thank you. So you have a DevOps team, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
two DevOps. We had
Oh,
this
DevOps.
phase. Okay, we want DevOps competencies within the different squads. So I actually have a backend developers that used to be a DevOps, but then we still have two central DevOps people that work as a platform team.
Okay. Thank you. Two questions left. The first one, do you share the successes and goals that you reach on the product side internally with your stakeholders? And if so, who does it? The PMs or the head of or whatever? And yeah, also the tech leads. Maybe also they share something internally.
Yeah. So how does that work? So first of all, we have what we call the impact sharing every 2 weeks with the team, 30 minutes, in which the PM and the designers, they prepare an analysis on what has been recently released, and we discuss the impact. It went well, it went bad, there is no impact, etc. So this is a very informal chat that we have every 2 weeks with the squads. Then on a monthly basis, the PM is responsible for updating the stakeholders and the team on the OKRs progression. And normally, we list the features that we have released connected to the key results. And we said, okay, this has a positive impact, negative impact, blah, blah. And we do that in a sync via email normally. So at the beginning of every month, I send a very long email with an analysis on the OKRs. And then at the mid of the quarter, we do a OKRs full check, which is live. We prepare a small presentation and we say, okay, this is what we've done, this is how it's going, etc., etc. So this is the more form. And then at the end of the quarter, we close the loop about the OKRs of the previous quarter with the different features, the impact, and blah, blah, blah. This is more, let's say, the formal one. The other thing that we try to do is to celebrate the small successes. So, for example, on Slack, we really push the team to say, okay, you release something in production, you close the card, mention it. Just write a message. Maybe nobody will care, and most of the people don't care, actually. I mean, there are very few reactions, but it's just to say, okay, let's celebrate the small wins, the things that are going well or not. So that's more or less, I think, the approach that we have to that.
Nice.
If I may add something.
Yes.
Yeah,
The question was mine. So it happens sometimes that you, for example, you release something really new, big. Do you share that with the whole company? Like,
sorry, thanks for the question. So what we also have is an internal newsletter that we call the What's New. Every 2 weeks, we send out an email with all the features that were developed by all the tribes in the 2 weeks before. Then if we have a feature that is impacting the operation, we also communicate that with the specific teams. And if we have something big, sometimes at the whole ends meeting, we mention that as an achievement of the month. And then we have the Casavo Champions team. So in that case, probably the team would be picked as a Casavo champion and would have the chance to explain what they've done.
so the team will go.
The team, yes, the team, yeah.
So is that something like live, and the whole team or something from the team is going to?
Yeah, it's a celebration live, yeah, during the all ends meeting.
And you do like a show off, and you explain the feature or the part of the product that you released.
Yeah, that moment is more about celebration. So, okay, we have done this much that works like this very quickly. Then, sorry, I forgot to mention that also we have the monthly demo. So at the end of every month, we do the demo with the whole company. I mean, everybody can join if they want. So we added this morning at 12, where we present the features, and there is the team. So the PM does just the introduction, and then a team member is presenting the features, and then there is the Q&A. I don't know. In my teams, nobody wants to present. I don't know. You guys,
that was my next question.
Yes, they are like, okay, I'm taking holidays because otherwise you push me to present. I'm like, okay, guys, we can find an agreement. And now there are these very nice AI videos. So now they're like, can we use the videos? And I'm like, okay, guys, it's your time. So it was supposed to be a celebration for you, but
yeah,
exactly. I think it's not working.
So we have the same issue, and we probably have to find a solution like putting a prize or something for who want to who want to share the success.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, for the question. Go. Vai, Kamal.
Seba, I don't know if you finished your question. I have some questions. I don't think if they are on topic, but I will try anyway because I wasn't present in the previous presentations. I'm curious about which project methodology you use. Like, are you going on Agile or Waterfall?
Agile.
Agile?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I heard before that, if I understand, you use a concept of tribe rather than teams.
Yes.
So from my understanding, the idea is that the subjects will change inside of tribe rather than remain the same team for a kind of project. So my curiosity is, how do you manage this? People moving someone that's used to work with the team to another team, and also how frequently this happens. Is there something a need of project? But we are experimenting this with our team and team Seva team at Book 2 with Adriano, for example, which is our front-end developer. So it's something I was curious about how this actually managed in a more frequent. If I explain myself correctly.
Yeah, explain. Yeah, thanks so much for the question. I think it's something that we discuss internally quite a lot. So first of all, we try to maintain the squads as much unchanged as possible. So if we need to make changes, we try to move an entire squad and not single people, right? Because we believe that we can create more cooperation within the single squads. It happened to make some changes. As I mentioned at the beginning, we were 2 tribes, sellers and buyers, and now we are a single one that is called marketplace. Or for example, we had the team that was working on the home financing product that now is also working a little more on the buyer experience. So it's a squad team, is a squad that now is moving within the marketplace tribe, let's say. So we do make these changes, but again, we try to maintain the squad as consistent as possible, and we don't do that frequently, right? So the tribes, they have a clear vision, they have a clear objective. What maybe you need to change is the balance of resources. So for example, on the seller side, now we are more mature. However, and we have 2 squads. So I would like to transition one squad from the seller context to the buyer context within the marketplace tribe. And I feel quite confident, but still not super. So I'm kind of pushing it back until it's really necessary, because the expertise and the domain knowledge that they have on something, it's very difficult then to replicate. So there's going to be a slowdown for sure, but I expect to be no more, let's say, the month of slowdown, and then they will get back to the normal speed. My assessment.
Thank you for the answer. I have only one other question, which is more a curiosity of mine. So I heard about that you use a concept of evaluating homes. I saw that on your website. I also used to work for Immobiliare, so we had we built we used to be competitors, even if now it's not the case, because you switched, you started buying homes rather than being a marketplace. But the idea is that without telling me your company secrets, what is the metrics of evaluating a home? It's for me because I want to buy a home, so I want. It's more a concept of how should I buy a home? Rather than paying.
Evaluating a home is no secret, I would say. So we have a machine learning model. It's called an AVM, so automated valuation model. Internally, we call it EVA. That is performing the home valuation. And essentially, in valuating a home, you have 2 components. You have what we call the CTA, comparable transaction analysis, and then you have the machine learning part. So the comparable transaction analysis is, I want to value a target property in Via Gaigliano, let's say. What I try to do is I try to find comparables properties with similar characteristic in the area that I know the price already. Okay, so property that have been sold in the past. Okay, And then what I need to do is I need to adapt the single feature of the home to the target home, because maybe the comparables as one extra room, maybe the comparables as a lower floor. So machine learning is creating a coefficient to do a weighted average of all the different prices of the different homes. And then we do the weighted average, and then it comes up the value of your home. So this is essentially how you evaluate home. And of course, the main elements that are taken into consideration is the position, because it's a driver of the value of the area, blah, 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 the square meters, and the renovation status. So very basic stuff. But in general, the way in which we price home is not that we have features that are more weighted one of the other. So we say, okay, the position is a higher weight than the floor, let's say, but because we use the comparable transaction analysis, is already factored in the competitors, in the comparables that you use. So that's the way in which we price home. We have a good performances. We believe that we have the best performance in the market, but this is our internal estimation. Of course, people are not happy with the value. So if you try to value your home, you will be not happy probably, because you have higher expectation normally, which is normal, because the market is slowing down a little bit. Specific, not Milan, but other cities are not in a very solid position. And because it's a 12 question survey, so there are unique elements of uniqueness of your home that we cannot take into consideration. Like my home has a very nice view of Gaulenti and Bosco Verticale. Of course, the algorithm does not know that, right? So you would need the exact comparables next door. So it's quite hard. So, but just to say that if you do the evaluation, you will be like, okay, Alessandro said that they are precise. They're really not precise, but I think it's because there are a lot of things to take into consideration. And it's the key results of this quarter, making people more happy about the evaluation.
Do you use also external factors, like for example, the house is near a school or near a bus stop, for example, or something like that?
Yeah, so we believe that is factoring into the comparables, right? So and I mean, I don't know exactly all the details, but we believe that we don't need to take into account these elements as on top, but everything is already factoring the comparables.
Okay, very clear. I will try it. We'll
Try
see.
it out.
I'll try it. We'll see. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kamal, for
Kamal,
having this conversation.
Yeah,
I'm
let us know if you
always
value
happy
your
to
home.
discuss.
Yeah. Okay. We have 4 minutes. 2 questions left. So I go straight to the point. The first one is about A/B testing. You do A/B tests, and if so, you measure the success or failure of features based on what you see from A/B tests.
Yeah, we do A/B testing where we have volume, because we're not Immobiliare Facile, I don't know, Prima. We don't have that volume in all the areas. Like on the mobile app, we don't have volume enough to do A/B testing. So we normally do on the valuation flow, especially at the beginning of the valuation flow. And for example, the last quarter of last year, we optimize a lot the conversion rate, because we did a lot of A/B testing and we understood the changes to do. So we do it where there is volume, where there is traffic. I think that sometimes product manager, they like A/B testing because it's like, I'm not taking a choice. I mean, it's not my error. So sometimes I think you need to be bold and release it, fail, and then you'll see it. That's my view of the world.
Thank you. There's the last question, which is about the career ladder in your product organization. Do you have both an individual contributor career path and or one related to people management? How does it work?
Yeah, so to be honest, we're not super structured on that. We don't have a huge product team. However, we would like to have a double career path, so an individual contributor and a people manager. We already have senior product managers that they don't have people in their team, and they're mostly focusing really on delivering, on managing teams, let's say, and not people. So building the product, and then head of product as me. I have of course I have product manager that work with me, and I'm their manager. So we would like ideally to have, yes, a double career ladder. In general, I think the main problem of that could be that then you foster a culture where the product leader is only a people manager, while I think a product leader is mostly a product manager that knows how to build a product and which are the dynamic to build a good product, right? So I think even if you have a double career ladder, you need to make very, very sure that you don't create a team of managers, but you create a team of product managers. So that's my personal view again of the topic.
Thank you. Perfectly on time. The Slido is
Super.
empty now, so I don't know if there are some more questions in the chat, or guys, if you want to unmute and ask the price of your next home, like come on.
I just wanted to thank Alessandro,
No,
and sorry
no,
if
how I
sometimes
want-
like a police interrogation rather than I talk. But
It was,
No,
it was a curiosity. It was
Go.
a curiosity.
no, but not just you, Kamal. It also
No,
me.
no, in general, yeah, no, it was a pleasure for me. I mean, I shared what we do. We failed and sometimes we succeed. So I hope it was useful. If there are any other questions, reach out to me and or invite me back. I'll come for sure, because it was really a pleasure spend this hour with you.